Jimi Hendrix was saying in '69 he always wanted a more open and integrated sound and said it bothered him that black people couldn't get into his music. Um, but they did. It's just that guitars, I grew up in a time where R&B radio had changed. The funk bands and the musicality, even early hip hop when Run DMC was hitting. King of Rock had guitars in it. The Ozzy Brothers, Who's That Lady, 73, 74. Mandrell, Fence Walk. A lot of R&B had guitars and bass in the music. It's just that when New Jack Swing took over, they took the guitars out. I still remember Spread My Wings with Troop, for instance, and they took the guitar out. The black radio is one of the most self-hating forms of radio I have ever heard in my life, if I can be honest. As much as I love the rare cuts and the stuff they did when you had the freelance, but when you had corporate done, when you had the corporate ran, they typecast it. They didn't want the guitars on and they didn't want the raps on. They had ways of cutting it. They had segregated within the segregation. So black radio very seldom has it ever been free unless you listen to black college radio or you had someone that had an open mind. They were some of the most closed-minded radio I ever heard. But his music was steeped in the blues. It was steeped in jazz. It was steeped in gospel. It was a gumbo of a whole lot of flavors because it is all Carter connected. It's just that black radio was not going to necessarily play his stuff. And it's always been the case. It's nothing new. When people wonder how come certain acts, Lenny Kravitz was making his complaints, Lenny D get played on black radio. But you can play guitar and your music get played on. But it was seen as a way that it was considered too white or something. There was these labels that these racists have put on in the industry plantation. And there is a fact that you always want to be accepted, that you can come home, that you can be respected, because we're not monolithic people. And music is an expression of all things and all structures. But this is a fact. But it was interesting that, he said the same thing. And I remember in the late 70s when Prince first came up, Prince said, he told Warner Brothers, don't make me black. Don't want to be limited. Want all the possibilities. So what artists should aspire to be. It's not that you're forgetting who you are. It's not that you're selling out. It's that your music should reach all platforms. Because when white artists come over and get hit with black acts, they still got their bass, usually. Unless, of course, you like Tina Marie. But most of the time, you can always go back and blend. And they did that with rockabilly back in the 50s. And so Buddy Holly had R&B hits. So I want people to understand, go back in time, do your research, do your history. Elvis Presley was incorporating R&B, pop, soul, country. He was on all, flowing around. So it wasn't like, what happened. But see, black acts get held to a whole different, you gotta sound, you ain't real if you don't sound like this. You don't sound black enough, It's the limitations. So when you even hear a guy who's considered the greatest guitarist ever, a guy who changed the course and the sound of music, an impactful artist who with his bare hands, I said bare hands, I want people to understand the magnitude of James Marshall Hendrix. With his bare hands came up with those sounds. With no sound pedals. Today you can go spend thousands of dollars to get what he did with his bare hands. So it came out of his mind. That was the fuel, the electrolytes that came out that man's system and sound. Let that sink in. Music doesn't have any color. It has heart and soul. It is either good or it's bad, as Duke Ellington used to say. It's just been these white racist people in the Hollywood plantation that have put labels on black folk. And they've had black folks who sold out and tap dance and said, yes, the boss, we're going to keep them good and we're going to sound like that. As opposed to making what you should do. Don't be told what to do. Because your creativity is your God-given talent. Not to be some AI android robot that we're going to make you sound this way because we want to hit this demographic. And the racist nature of putting music towards black folk and white, which I was experiencing as a kid following artists that I did, because there were songs that were geared to the black charts. And if it crossed over to the pop, then it did. And then the crossover nightmare. But anyway, wanted to take the time to talk about this Jimi Hendrix quote, this article, because it's a fact. You should never be limited with your creativity. If it hit, it hit. If it don't, it don't. That's why it's an insult and embarrassing that the white racist institutionalization of the music industry even has a label called country music. Because ain't you all from the same country? I'm out.